The donuts were stale, the coffee was lukewarm, and the lies came in hotter than either. Monday morning sync meeting, mandatory of course. HR promised fresh bagels. We got leftovers from the break room fridge and a projector that wouldn't stop blinking. I sat in the back like I always did, row 3, seat 5, red pen in hand, trying not to grind my molars down to dust. My name's Nolan. I'm 57 years old. I live just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been the head of risk and compliance at Holden Systems for almost 14 years. Long enough to know when someone's trying to sell you a steaming pile of crap in a cashmere wrapper. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Chase walked in late, holding a reusable water bottle and a laptop that probably cost more than my first car. He's the new director of finance, 31. MBA from somewhere with palm trees, Wi-Fi hammocks, and too much startup culture. The kind of guy who says, let's circle back in casual conversation and thinks disruption is a personality trait. He launched into a deck that looked like it belonged in a TED talk, not a compliance review. Bright colors, overinflated metrics, double-spaced nonsense about historic Q1 growth. First chart, I spotted it. Line item showing a vendor contract renewed last month. Thing expired 6 weeks ago. I knew that because I was the one who flagged the renewal back in January. It never got signed. In next slide, buried in capital improvements, a number that jumped out like a neon sign in a blackout. Deferred repairs, listed at 0. 0. There should have been 880,000 grand sitting there, flagged and waiting. Deferred for budget reasons. I signed off on that hold myself. Now it had magically vanished like a Vegas act. I raised my hand. Was legal cleared to review the report before this went to the board? Chase barely looked up from his screen, gave me this smug half smile like I'd asked if the font was Times New Roman. It's all been reviewed, Nolan. We're solid. No follow-up, no eye contact, just a brush off with teeth. I didn't argue, didn't push back, not in that room. Not with Tessa from HR sitting in the corner pretending not to take notes on her iPad. I went back to my office, closed the door, started archiving, pulled backup reports, vendor emails, and my own PDF exports. I wasn't panicked. I've seen panic. This wasn't that. This was prep. Because if someone's going to lie that boldly, they're either stupid, burnt, or protected, and I needed to find out which. By Wednesday, my access to the Q2 draft reports was gone. No notice. Just a red permission denied banner where the files used to be. I clicked again, just to be sure. Same thing. Thursday, my badge couldn't unlock the compliance archive room downstairs. Used to be my clearance was second only to Harris, the CFO. Now it beeped twice and flashed red. I went to IT. Kid at the help desk mumbled something about security streamlining, then looked like he wanted to crawl inside his hoodie when I stared him down. I didn't press. I didn't have to. The next week, I submitted an expense report for a routine vendor lunch. $43. Got flagged as incomplete, resubmitted with receipts. Then it showed up as not received. I emailed Tessa from HR. She wrote back 3 days later with a 2-line response. Hey Nolan, we're currently reviewing departmental spend as part of a broader compliance synergy realignment. Thanks for your patience. Compliance synergy realignment. That's when it clicked. They were icing me out. Not firing me yet. Too risky. Just starving the air, one breath at a time. I opened my personal backup drive. Not the one I'd archived reports on. This was older, buried deep. I started flipping through old policy docs I'd written years back. One folder caught my eye. FY 17_rev_policy_final_final. Inside it, there it was. Section 9, D, plain language, bullet format, finalized and stamped with internal legal's approval. Back when we were rewriting our restructuring guidelines, I'd slipped it in under termination and retaliation provisions. It read, if any employee is released from their role within 90 days of confirmed or documented financial misreporting by the company or its officers, severance will include damages equal to 1 fiscal quarter of projected earnings plus legal reimbursement. That clause had never been tested. No one had ever even mentioned it. Because no one actually reads compliance policy. They skim, they guess, they nod and pretend. I printed it, 3 copies, highlighted the clause, signed and dated the margin, filed 1 in my office cabinet, 1 in my glove box, 1 in my safe at home. Then I sat back in my chair, looked around my office, the walls I'd painted myself, the little ceramic eagle my daughter made me in 8th grade, the framed copy of our first clean audit from 2011, and I waited. No panic, no calls, no begging. Let them keep icing me out. Let them think I'd go quiet. But I built this department, and I built the rules they were about to trip over. They just didn't know it yet. The invite landed in my inbox at 8:03 a.m. sharp. Subject, Q2 Ops Sync. No agenda, no attachments, just a location and a half-hour block. Conference room D, the one they only use when something's about to go sideways. I accepted, didn't respond, didn't ask questions, walked in 3 minutes early. Harris was already there, fake smiling like his face hurt. Chase stood off to the side near the whiteboard, arms crossed, looking like he'd just bench-pressed a strategy deck. Tessa wasn't in the room, but her fingerprints were all over the setup. "Hey, Nolan," Harris said, voice too cheerful. "Appreciate you coming in on short notice." I nodded. "Didn't know I had a choice." He chuckled, like that made it less true. Chase leaned forward. "Just wanted to align on some operational pivots before we lock in for Q3. Harris clicked the remote. First slide came up. Something about streamlined structures for scalable growth. Corporate wallpaper. Second slide, org chart. My name was still on it, barely. Third slide, blurred vision statement garbage. Chase jumped in again. "We're really excited about creating unified accountability across finance and compliance." Then slide 4 hit. "In the interest of efficiency, risk and compliance will now fall under finance leadership." That was it. No bullet points, no job title. Just a neat little sentence written to sound like a memo, not a hit job. I didn't blink, just asked, flat, "Severance?" Chase shifted his weight. Harris looked down at the table. That's when Rob walked in. Legal counsel, mid-40s, soft loafers and a smug walk that screamed billable hours. He pulled the door shut behind him. "Oh, come on, man," he said before even sitting down. "Nobody negotiates severance here. You're not getting pushed out, Nolan. You're being repositioned." I turned toward him. "Into what?" He shrugged. "It's a restructure. Titles evolve. Teams merge. It's nothing personal." I leaned back in my chair. "So, no severance?" "No grounds for it," he said, still smiling like we were at happy hour. I stood up. Calm, no theatrics, just done. Walked to the bookshelf, grabbed my frame policy credentials. Same frame I bought the week I got promoted in 2011. Took it off the shelf slow, like it might break if I rushed. "Anything else?" I asked. Chase opened his mouth, but Rob cut him off. "We'll be in touch." I walked out without a word. No slamming doors, no dramatic goodbyes. I knew what this was the second I got the invite. You can feel the air change before the axe swings. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that they just pulled the trigger on their own minefield. And I was the one who buried the charge. I sat in the garage with the lights off, the garage door halfway cracked. 1 slice of cold pepperoni from a box I didn't remember ordering, and a bottle of rye I kept for nights exactly like this. The so-called severance packet was on the workbench next to a dead flashlight and a busted torque wrench. 2 stapled sheets, no letterhead, no apology. Just boilerplate, backpedaling after swearing I wasn't owed a dime. 4 weeks, not a penny more. I grabbed my phone and scrolled down to Mitch B. Last time I talked to him was at a funeral. Before that, divorce party. Mine. He picked up on the second ring. "Jesus? Nolan?" "Yeah. You still eat lawsuits for breakfast?" "Only the good ones." "What did they do?" I told him everything. From the fake vendor renewal to the missing deferred repair line, the Q2 Ops ambush. Chase smirking like he owned the place. Rob with his country club laugh. Mitch didn't interrupt once, just listened. When I finished, I heard him crack a beer. "What's the clause say exactly?" he asked. I read it to him. Slow. Every word. When I got to, One fiscal quarter of projected earnings plus legal reimbursement. He whistled low through his teeth. "You're sitting on a bomb," he said, "and they handed you the fuse." I didn't say anything. "You want quiet money," he said, "or you want to make 'em bleed." I looked at the packet again. 2 stapled sheets, no dignity. "Both," I said, in that order. He laughed, not a friendly laugh, the kind that means somebody else's day is about to get real dark. "Send me the clause, the packet, and whatever you've got on the financials. Emails, slides, time-stamped versions. If you've got Slack messages, even better. I've got everything." "Good. I'll loop in my team. We'll take the gloves off after breakfast." I killed the call, closed the laptop, took another pull from the rye bottle, and leaned back in the lawn chair I never used until my life was upside down. They thought they were cleaning house, but they left the wrong man in the garage. Mitch's team moved fast. By noon the next day, I was on a Zoom call with 1 paralegal, 2 analysts, and a guy named Trevor, who didn't say much but took notes like he was drafting a eulogy. I dumped everything I had: emails, PDFs, version histories of slide decks, screenshots from internal reporting tools, exported messages from Slack threads I wasn't even supposed to have access to anymore. One of the analysts flagged 4 financial statements that had been altered after executive review. Same report titles, same file names, but the version numbers told the real story. One had a comment left in the metadata from Chase himself. "Don't include that liability note yet. We'll slide it into Q3. Trevor just muttered, "Jesus," and kept typing. Mitch didn't get excited, didn't raise his voice, just nodded. "That's what I needed." He drafted a formal inquiry, clean, polite, no legal posturing, sent it through a third-party mediator that handled corporate disputes behind closed doors. It went straight to the board. All it said was this: "We are requesting clarification regarding the application of Section 9D in light of the recent restructure and surrounding financial discrepancies. No threats, no accusations. Just a loaded question with a clause-shaped bullet behind it." 48 hours later, HR replied. Not Tessa this time, someone above her, some EVP with a name I didn't recognize. Happy to revisit Nolan's transition package as part of our ongoing commitment to transparency and fairness. Translation: they're sweating. That same night, I got a text from an unknown number. No name, just, "They're panicking. Board meeting just got called." "Be ready," I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new file on my desktop, named it what it was, whistleback_proof. Inside it, I dropped everything I had sorted so far, labeled by date, source, relevance to Section 9D. I even color-coded the internal Slack screenshots, red for fraud, yellow for evasion, blue for executive approval. I didn't do it for drama. I did it because I knew how these people thought. They'd try to bury the real issue under 100 pages of nothing. So I made sure every page I had screamed. Mitch called the next morning. We got their attention. "Now we make them blink." "You think they'll fold?" I asked. "They'll offer a deal. Something that sounds generous but shuts you up. Don't take the first one I didn't plan to." By that afternoon, my LinkedIn started buzzing. Old coworkers I hadn't heard from in years were suddenly checking my profile. One even messaged me, "Hey man, everything okay over there? Saw some weird shifts going on. You good?" I didn't answer, not yet, because this wasn't about being good. It was about being thorough. We never called it revenge. We called it documentation. The conference room was colder than it needed to be. One of those rented downtown offices with fake plants in every corner and a coffee machine that hissed like it hated you. No press, no cameras. Just the silence you get when too many people are pretending it's business as usual. I walked in behind Mitch. He was carrying a black briefcase and a 3-ring binder with a white label across the front in thick black Sharpie. Section 9D Enforcement. Nobody said a word when we entered. At the far end of the table sat 2 board members I'd only ever seen in year-end Zoom calls. Mid-60s, stiff posture, real quiet. Harris sat on the left, same wrinkled button-down from the last 2 investor meetings, only now it looked like he'd slept in it. He didn't look at me. Chase wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. Word was he'd already lawyered up and stopped showing his face around the office. Rob, the company's legal mouthpiece, leaned back in his chair like he was waiting for someone to ask him to bless the room. Brown loafers, no socks, hair slicked back like he thought it made him look younger. It didn't. He broke the silence first. Appreciate you both making time for this. I think we all agree that this has been a big misunderstanding, and the best thing for everyone is to clear the air quickly. Mitch didn't even sit yet. He pulled out the binder, popped it open, and slid 2 documents across the table. One was a printed copy of Section 9D, highlighted, annotated, signed. The other was a color printout of a financial projection, version stamped. Right under it, a Slack message from Chase. Just fudge the CapEx, no one checks. Rob picked it up, squinted, then smiled like he'd just caught a typo on a wedding invite. Come on, this is clearly informal. You know how teams talk when they're moving fast. This isn't malice, it's a miscommunication. Mitch finally sat down, calm, no theatrics. He looked right at the board members, not Rob. My client was terminated following doctored reports sent to the board, he said. He raised questions, was pushed out. You're liable under your own internal clause. We're not here to argue feelings. One board member, gray suit, hands clasped, sighed. What are you asking for? Mitch didn't blink. 1.33 million, letter of wrongdoing, NDA signed, funds wired in 15 business days. Rob let out this short, nasal laugh. You're asking for 7 figures because someone misread a line item? Look, he leaned forward. We'll offer 8 weeks' pay. That's already generous. Mitch didn't say anything, just reached into his case and pulled out another folder, flipped it open slow. Inside, an envelope marked SEC copies in red Sharpie. He placed it in the center of the table, didn't push it forward, didn't even touch it again. The room went dead, like someone had hit mute on reality. Rob cleared his throat. Harris looked down at his lap like there was something there worth saving. One of the board members muttered something under his breath, then reached for the projection printout again. Nobody moved for a full minute. I didn't speak, not once, didn't have to. The weight of what they did, what they almost got away with, was already crawling its way up their necks. You could feel it, like a wire tightening. Then someone's coffee cup hit the floor, loud, porcelain on tile, shattered. No one even looked to see who dropped it. Mitch leaned back, still calm. 15 business days, or I dropped that envelope in the mail before lunch. No one argued. The coffee hadn't even dried off the floor before the smear campaign started. 3 days later, someone from IT, off the record, texted me a screenshot of a Slack message floating around internal channels. Didn't Nolan run point on that FY17 backup system? Who's to say he didn't plant that clause? They weren't even being subtle, just throwing enough mud to see what might stick. Mitch wasn't fazed. Let them smear, he said. We're not bluffing, and they know it. That's why they're panicking. He was right. 2 days later, I got an email from a burner address. No subject, no signature. Just a forwarded thread between a handful of finance employees. Subject line, can we get ahead of the risk guy's clause? I read it twice. Then a third time, just to be sure. The thread was dated 2 weeks before the Q2 ops meeting, before they even pulled the trigger on my role. It was clear as daylight. They knew about the clause before they let me go, and they were scrambling to work around it. One line stood out. Is there a way to reposition this as a restructure, not a termination? He's got a clause tied to financial misreporting. We can't trigger it. I didn't reply to the email. I just forwarded it to Mitch. He called me an hour later. Board's getting it. SEC's getting it. Today, you sure we're not overplaying our hand? I asked. He actually laughed. Nolan, they already folded. This is just collecting the receipts. Then he sent it. Full thread to the board, with a CC to a guy he knew at the SEC. Said he wouldn't push it public unless they decided to be stupid. They didn't reply. That night, I grilled a steak for the first time in months. Sat on my porch with a beer and a hoodie. No texts, no calls, just quiet. I knew what was coming. I didn't need them to say anything. Because when a company starts whispering lies, it's not confidence. It's fear. And fear doesn't bluff. The earnings report dropped on a Tuesday. I didn't even look for it. Mitch sent it straight to my inbox with the subject line, page 39. Didn't take long to find it. Post-filing adjustments due to deferred liabilities. No detail, no explanation. Just a footnote tucked at the bottom of a page nobody reads, unless they're waiting for it. That was the trigger. Mitch filed the final arbitration demand less than an hour later. Full enforcement. Legal fees included. Clause 9D in full bloom. 72 hours. That's how long it took for the company to fold. By Thursday morning, 3 announcements hit the internal bulletin board. First, CFO Harris Whitmore has decided to step down to pursue new opportunities. Translation, forced out. Second, effective immediately, Chase Leonard is no longer with the company. No thank you. No, we appreciate his contributions. Just gone. Third, General Counsel Robert Trent has concluded his tenure with Halden Systems. Clean, cold, and final. I didn't crack a smile. Not yet. Because that same morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered. It was someone from the board. Didn't catch the name, didn't care. He was polite, careful. Said they'd agreed to the full terms. $1.33 million, legal fees covered, and a letter. No ceremony, no apology. Just a one-liner on official letterhead. Wrongful restructuring acknowledged. Mitch had already seen the wire confirmation before I even got off the phone. He texted, cleared, full payout. They knew they had no shot. And just like that, it was done. I logged into the old HR portal, mostly out of curiosity. My account was deactivated, of course. But HR never closed the loop. My badge status was still listed as active admin tier, even if the systems behind it had been cut off. That part made me smile. I still had the lanyard in my desk drawer, still had the photo ID, the same one I'd posed for back in 2011, wearing a tie my wife picked out the day before she left. That was another lifetime, but the badge still worked. I thought about mailing it back, for maybe 2 seconds. Then I closed the drawer. Later that day, Mitch and I grabbed lunch at a BBQ joint off E77. We didn't talk about the case much, didn't have to. At one point, he looked up from his plate and said, "You know what your mistake was?" I raised an eyebrow. "What?" "You assumed they read the policy docs." We both laughed. That was the thing. I hadn't been smarter than them. I'd just been thorough. They lied in broad daylight. I waited in the dark with the receipts, and now they were out. I was whole. And the only thing louder than the payout was the silence that followed it. A week later, I signed the final agreement in a half-empty conference room. No speeches, no apologies, just a signature, a handshake I didn't take, and silence. It was over.